Maybach music. Sad death of Maybach Music Group. Now, when I think of Maybach Music, I think of Wale, Rick Ross, and Meek Mill, of course. And I feel like Wale should have definitely been pushed more because he's not a bad artist, you know. But of course, when you don't get the spotlight anymore, you get pushed out. People forget about you. You know what I'm saying? But without further ado, we're gonna see the whole collapse of it. Let's get straight into this video.
What's poppin', yo? When Rick Ross was figuring out what to name his label,
Hump
he decided on using
Roast.
the Maybach brand from Mercedes Benz as inspiration. Maybachs are high end luxury cars that are worth in excess of well over
Yeah.
$170,000. This concept of glamour was not intended to tell his fans to run out and spend money that they don't have to buy, as he would call it, Maybach cars, but to link the high quality associated with these coveted cars with the kind of quality that Ross believed was found in his artistic work, both in his sound and his commitment of time to create the Maybach Music Group, MMG. In the early 2010s, it appeared that MMG was on pace to really dominate the decade. The statistics said it all: 5 number 1 albums in 3 years, 7 albums in a 15-month span. They ranked higher than J. Cole's Dreamville label and even higher than TDE, home to Kendrick Lamar. Rick Ross's main artists included Meek Mill, Wale,
Fuck with Wale. I
Omarion,
still fuck
and
with Wale,
Stolly,
man.
and they were highly visible and sought after by fans and artists alike. It seemed as though the Maybach music
Maybach
vocal tag on their
music.
songs was practically inescapable. Despite all of these accolades and a sprinting start, it never lived up, not even close to its potential. This was in part because Maybach Music Group and its leaders had their own challenges, even as they should have been able to better weather the storm. By the summer of 2010, Rick Ross could be heard all over the airwaves and inside every dance
Yeah,
club, whether it was songs
yeah.
like BMF, MC Hammer, Super High, or Aston Martin music. It was clear that audiences loved Ross and could not wait to hear more. The hype around Ross was not simply due to the popularity of the singles he released or the fame attributed to his mafioso persona. Rick Ross' fourth album, Teflon Don, immediately captured the imaginations of audiences and was acclaimed as his best work yet, my favorite album by him. And while the album did not hit number 1 on the Billboard charts, it was admired and praised
Now
by both fans.
mine's is what's that joint? He released the project he released and he had a biggie on it. It was that and it was Apple of My Eye.
And critics. The record label imprint Maybach Music Group, or MMG, would officially take shape in 2009 with distribution through Atlantic Records, which took over distribution following the expiration of a deal with Island Def Jam. In its early days, it appeared that the imprint was most interested in featuring the new faces of rap music and creating a space where already known names in the hip hop industry could really level up their game. In total, the imprint would go on to release 19 solo albums, 3 compilation albums, 5
Okay.
of which would be certified gold, and 3 of which would be certified platinum. Among the label's early artists, Triple C's and Mass Pike Miles were the first 2 signed to the imprint. Ross would then go on to pursue Wiz Khalifa, who was already signed to Atlantic Records. In the summer of 2009, Maybach Music Group would release its first album, Rick Ross's third studio album, Deeper Than Rap. Following this release, Ross decided to focus more of his attention on signing artists to his label. After signing Mass Pike Miles and rap group Triple C's, whose members included Gunplay, Torch, and Young Breed, Ross would go
I
on
feel
to
like I feel like it's dope that artist assign another artist, but it's like it's not smart for the simple fact that that artist may not be 100% knowledgeable of the business and still have things going on themselves. I've never really seen it work out too much with an artist signing to another artist, and for the simple fact that people always say like, "Yo, they're not gonna want you to get bigger than them," this, that, and the third, and sometimes it do be true. So you might as well better off like signing like a distribution deal or just
release
staying
Triple C's
independent.
debut studio album, Custom Cars and Cycles.
Kind of the same thing,
By
but
2011, Ross announced a series of big plans. On the day of the NFL Super Bowl, when the Green Bay Packers would secure a win over the Pittsburgh Steelers, Rick Ross would announce that rapper Wale had recently been signed to his Maybach Music Group. In Ross' memoir, Rick Ross wrote, "I first met Wale at King of Diamonds. Wale was a backpack rapper, so I was surprised to see him in a strip club, and I was even more surprised to hear his
Fuck
music
is a
booming in
backpack
there.
rapper?
No Hands was a hit record, but it wasn't an accurate representation
The
of
hell is
Wale
a
as an
like?
artist. Wale had depth. He could make the strip club anthem, but he also made songs that resonated with women on a deeper level. He was
Nice
the poster
Lord, it's
boy of the blogs,
flower,
but he also had the
fireflies,
HBCUs
and
and his
around.
hometown of Washington, D.C. behind him. His music paid tribute to his Nigerian heritage and had elements of go-go and spoken word poetry.
You Nigerian?
A day after Ross's announcement about Wale, he also told the public that Meek Mill, a Philadelphia street rapper with some battle rap history, had also been signed to MMG as part of the label.
Didn't Meek say he had problems with Rick Ross because he wasn't getting paid or something like that? And then Rick Ross came back and spoke about it.
Label's growing roster. In 2011, Ross also confirmed that MMG would be launching Maybach Music Jamaica and Maybach Music Latino. He would then go on to sign the imprint's first reggae artist magazine. In March of that same year, Ross announced that he would continue to expand beyond hip-hop once more by signing R&B and soul singer Tidra Moses. Moses would be the imprint's first female artist. As the artist roster continued to grow, Maybach Music Group was slowly convincing the world that the imprint was but another growing hip-hop and entertainment empire. By 2012, fans would learn that French Montana had also signed a joint venture deal with Maybach Music Group and Bad Boy Records. Montana indicated that both Rick Ross and Diddy would executive produce his debut album, Excuse My French, which was set to be released in the fall through Interscope Records. But only a month later, it appeared
one of my favorite joints from French Montana was Coke Zoo with Fetty Wap.
that things were already getting rocky at Maybach Music Group when Ross revealed that Pill had departed from the imprint and that he had never even been signed in the first place. Ross stated that MMG had worked out a one-year deal with Warner Brothers in which Pill would be a part of the Maybach team. By the mid-year point, things started to look up as Ross would go on to sign R&B star Omarion, a former boy band fan at B2K. Ross would also announce that MMG had two upcoming albums that would be released, Self-Made Volume 2 and God Forgives I Don't. That year, there were also rumors that the imprint was in talks to bring on rappers Dom Kennedy and Nipsey Hussle. One of the other rumors, that Rocky Fresh was in talks to join the label, actually did materialize, and Fresh would go on to release his mixtape Electric Highway in early January 2013. In regards to Rocky Fresh, Ross was on record stating, "Everybody can see a little bit of themselves in a Rocky Fresh, and that's how he presents his music. I like to say he has a system, and I'm sitting back and I'm watching all his videos, his virals, and I'm like, yo, this kid is really ready for the majors right here. Because this is major. What I'm looking at is major, and I just wanted it to be organic." By late 2012, it appeared that matters at MMG were transforming yet again as Ross announced that the imprint was moving to Atlantic Records. Throughout 2013, MMG would go on to release a succession of material between singles, music videos, and a compilation album. Then in August 2013, Ross released MMG's third collaboration album, Self-Made Volume 3. While the label was reasonably diverse, not all artists experienced the same level of success.
In my opinion, like when it comes to the 90s, that was a golden era. And I feel like the era of the early 2010s, that was golden too, for the simple fact that everything on the radio was straight heat, from Drake to freaking like Alicia Keys, Fantasia, Meek Mill. It was like just a variety. Usher, freaking Sean Paul. Like it was just a variety of a lot of good artists.
Success. Among the artists associated with MMG, Omarion's Post to Be was a huge summer smash, peaking at 13 on the Billboard Hot 100. Rapper Gunplay's Living Legend did not sell as well as expected, but many estimate that it was because of the extended wait for the album. While Rocky Fresh and Fat Trell were able to maintain interest in their music through underground appeal, the release of mixtapes, and consistent touring, fans lost interest with the lack of information on other official releases. While the label was flourishing, there was also drama brewing beneath the surface. The drama that was circulating at Maybach Music Group was in part due to an ongoing beef between MMG label mates Wale and Meek Mill. In July 2014, reports stated that Meek Mill called his colleague Wale a hater for not tweeting about his album. Some argued that Meek responded that way because he didn't like it when featured artists didn't tweet about his album. But others maintained that if Wale and Meek had been on good terms, Meek would not have responded as he did. In response, Wale went on Instagram and stated that he did support Meek and that it was instead Meek who did not respond. Shortly thereafter, Rick Ross stated
Yeah,
publicly that
yeah,
he called
cause didn't Meek Mill do the same thing to freaking Drake, and that's what started off the whole thing. I forgot what started off that whole thing, but I just know it didn't end well for Meek Mill.
both Meek Mill and Wale to discuss the issue, and everything had since been resolved. By October of 2015, Wale made a visit to the Breakfast Club, where he stated during an interview that Meek had brought a pencil to a gunfight in his ongoing beef with Canadian rapper Drake. Meek then took to Instagram, calling Wale a jealous clown. He proceeded to publicly state that Wale was not on Maybach Music Group and that he should jump off a roof. The pair
Nah,
used the
that's come on,
platform to go back and
that's too
forth.
much, bro.
In
That's too
response,
much, bro.
Wale
That sounds
sarcastically
childish as hell.
subtweeted Meek in an attempt to diss and mock him. Yet again, Rick Ross publicly defended the two, claiming that they were brothers and the media should not pay attention to what was really an insignificant exchange. 2 years later, at Rick Ross's birthday, the media reported that Meek and Wale had made peace. Some argue that the situation between Wale and Meek Mill played out in much the same way that two middle managers would lobby for control at a growing startup while slighting each other constantly. In 2015, when he was asked why he did not intervene in the beef between Meek and Wale, Ross stated, "Because it was unnecessary. It's just like being a big brother. Just like every day in the studio with my homies. That's just the type of vibe we are. But that's not personal. But most definitely, speak your mind. And if you got to get emotional and speak and make your point, you do that. Whatever it is. But this the squad. This the empire. It'll never go no further than that.
Moving like a
We'll never
boss.
shed no blood." In his discussion of the beef, Ross suggested that his intervention would have only been needed if the conflict between Wale and Meek Mill had escalated, and there was a threat of bloodshed or violence. He explained that when the beef unfolded, both rappers were at an emotional crossroads in their lives. On the one hand, Wale was frustrated by the lack of progress in his career. This feeling was made worse by his ongoing battle with depression and substance abuse. Meek, on the other hand, was bogged down with legal troubles and his ongoing beef with Drake. In the height of Maybach Music Group's fame and visibility, Ross was still signed to Def Jam and contractually obligated to release albums according to the terms and conditions that had been set. Unlike other label arrangements where a non-artist was in a critical leadership role, as is the case of Dreamville CEO Ibrahim Hamad or Chief Operating Officer Steve Pomone, who runs Parkwood Entertainment alongside Beyonce, Rick Ross decided to run Maybach Music Group entirely on his own. Along with the music, Ross navigated his own legal issues and managed his own non-music business ventures. Taking on all that responsibility.
From what I heard Rick Ross stole that name. I don't know how true that is though. That's what I think somebody on Vlad TV named Freeway Ricky did an interview saying how Rick Ross stole his name and it was a whole lawsuit and all that.
Led to a tremendous amount of stress. To deal with the pressure of all these responsibilities, Ross decided to begin taking codeine. Beginning in 2011, his drug use eventually led to Ross experiencing several seizures that led to the musician being hospitalized a number of times. In order to get healthier, Ross stopped taking codeine, began losing weight, and took medication that had been previously prescribed to him. These health and well-being challenges, as well as the lack of an effective label structure, really stunted the growth of MMG. When asked in a 2017 Billboard Music interview about what he thought were his biggest mistakes as Maybach Music Group CEO, Ross answered, "I mean, just as a CEO and a boss, a lot of times you don't follow budgets. You'll just spend money based on your passion and your heart. A lot of times it doesn't work. It could be extremely faulty versus pacing yourself. You got to pace yourself. You got to make sure that the music connects as an artist instead of just going off the rip." Ross might have been referring to a number of decisions that he made in the early 2010s. First, some estimate that he might have been talking about his failure to sign rapper Wiz Khalifa in 2010, which was stunted by a lack of resources, particularly money to compete.
I remember Wiz Khalifa first came out, "Homie, I'm on my level." I think his first song was Too Short, if I'm not mistaken.
Major record labels were able to offer. Others have estimated that Ross might have been referring to MMG's decision to sign Omarion, who in 2014 had a wildly popular single with Post to Be, but then failed to follow up that recording with something anywhere near as successful. Others still have referred to Maybach Music Group's inability to assist Meek Mill while he was experiencing legal challenges. Others argue that it was Rick Ross's laissez-faire leadership style over Maybach Music Group that generated trouble for his label. Unlike Cash Money CEO Birdman, Rick Ross also functioned as an artist-friendly executive.
On stomp.
However, as a result of this leadership style, relationships with artists could be made difficult, especially if the founder had to make difficult decisions. In the case of Meek Mill, Ross's management style resulted in the rapper being unable to meet his full potential as a result of an absence of Ross mentorship. Ross also was absent when Meek Mill fell into personal struggles, and when Ross's two artists, Meek and Wale, fell into trouble with one another, Ross did not step in to rectify the beef. While Meek Mill
See,
had
like I said, even this, I think I did a video with the same thing about Kanye's label. I'm telling you, when you're an artist trying to sign an artist, you don't realize that you also have things to do and you don't have time to be the person that that artist wants you to be, as far as like, yo, listening to every track, popping out to the studio sessions, making sure they songs is right and all that. So it's like, it's a waste of time. You might as well do that when you're ready to retire. And people, so I'm sure people will still sign to you at that point.
been signed to Maybach Music Group since 2011, reports had circulated for months once it appeared that there were tensions brewing between Rick Ross and Meek Mill over a possible contract dispute with the imprint Maybach Music Group. Reports indicated that at Meek Mill's birthday party, he had blocked Ross from entering due to allegedly refusing to let him out of his MMG contract. A few months after these rumors began circulating, Ross publicly denied that the two had tensions growing between them. In an interview Ross gave on The Morning Hustle, he explained the nature of his relationship with Meek, stating, "I feel like we're both hustlers. That's one thing about life. You either grow together or grow apart. As a boss, you make that decision because whatever it is you want to do, Ricky Rose wants to see you do it." Ross also explained that if it was true that Meek had label issues, those challenges would not be with MMG. Instead, those issues would be the ones that Meek would have to iron out with Atlantic Records. Ross then elaborated by saying, "I'm going to be honest. When Meek taking a jab at anybody, the only way I can assume he's doing that at is Atlantic Records. All we ever did was get paper. And it's really easy to say somebody's name. Ain't nothing to. You feel me? I know what it is when me and Meek always got money. He a boss now. We done been down 10 years. Is he signed to Maybach Music? Yes, he is. But he's also a boss. And real bosses give other bosses opportunities to become bigger bosses. Go, man. Go buy the biggest stuff in Dubai, man. Let's go be billionaires. And if I'm only going to get 7 billion and you get 20 billion, God is great. That's all it is. Is it any pressure? It ain't no pressure. And always remember, it's real easy to make it clear when it's pressure." By 2018, reports emerged that Maybach Music Group rapper Wale had parted ways with Atlantic Records. At the time, Atlantic did not confirm whether Wale had been dropped from the label or whether the decision to split was mutually agreed upon by the artist and label. During his time signed to Maybach Music Group, and therefore under the umbrella of Atlantic Records, Wale had released 3 albums: The Gifted, Album About Nothing, and Shine. During his time as an MMG rapper
Yeah,
signed to
his Shine
Atlantic,
album was
Wale
dope.
had 2
I
albums
think
debut at
he
number
had what was it? He had PYT on there. I wanna love you, pretty young thing. You need some loving from a real one.
1. Several platinum singles, including Lotus Flower Bomb and Bad,
Facts.
and gold records, some of which include My PYT and
Man, yeah,
Metro.
my PYT.
But
People
during his
forget
time
about
in this
Wale.
contract, Wale struggled, particularly in the area of sales. Since his release of The Gifted, Wale's music experienced a significant decline in popularity, at least commercially. Case in point, his album Shine sold less than 30,000 copies in its first week. As a result, many suspected that that might have been what led to his departure from the label. However, one point that can be made is Wale's album Full R&2 had sold 20K first week towards the end of 2021, which is after many rules were changed that didn't apply
Yeah,
to
Wale's not a
the
bad
album
artist,
Shine.
bro.
And these are rules that were used to
Wale is not a
enhance
bad artist.
Billboard first week album sales. We're not sure whether or not Wale is still on MMG. When we said departure from the label, we were talking about Atlantic, and then he went over to Warner, but he was still signed with MMG. However, he's definitely released more than 5 albums with MMG, which is what standard record deals come across. So perhaps he may be on the way out or already out of Maybach Music Group as a record label. And if that is the case, then this just shows how dwindling of a label that Rick Ross currently has. When Rick Ross signed Omarion back in 2012, the momentum at the time was overwhelming. However, his presence on MMG was largely underwhelming. Case in point was when Omarion dropped MIA featuring Wale, which received little to no support. In the midst of the record failing to do well, Omarion told the crew at the Breakfast Club that this was due to MMG moving from Warner to Atlantic Records. However, even in 2013, with the release of Know You Better featuring Fabulous and Pusha, Omarion's music still did not do well, in part because the record was not pushed the way it should have been. This changed with the single Post to Be featuring Chris Brown and Jhené Aiko. In the case of this record, while MMG did not push it either, Omarion decided to push the record. As a result, the song became a tremendous hit. During an interview on Vlad TV, Omarion gave MMG little to no credit for his success during his time at Maybach Music Group. Instead, Omarion claimed that he was now 100% independent and signed to his own label, Omarion Worldwide. By 2021, Stolly, Rick Ross's former signee, announced that he had found a new label.
I totally
with Mellow
forgot about
Music
him.
Group. The Ohio rapper told Billboard,
Totally
I'm very
forgot
excited about the situation and the opportunity with Mellow Music Group. Partnering with Mellow Music at this stage of my career is a blessing. As a label, they let you be yourself and let you be an artist, while also helping you expand independently. This move to Mellow Music Group came 5 years after his 2016 mixtape, Saving Yourself, released off Ross's MMG imprint. Reports indicated that in 2017, Stolly quietly parted ways with MMG after having been signed to the imprint since 2011, when he was part of a then-growing roster that included Meek Mill, Wale, and Atlanta rapper Pill. Among some of the albums that were promised and yet unreleased on Maybach Music Group was Tidra Moses' 2004 lead album, The Empress Pride. Even though she was technically under contract for only one song, Britney labeled herself the First Lady of Maybach Music. Ultimately, she would only go on to release one song during her time on the label, and interestingly enough, the release was not a track affiliated with Maybach Music. In addition to Moses, Texas artist Just Britney was also promised the ability to record as well. There was also a rumor that Ross had big release plans for Dancehall Artist Magazine back in 2011. While Magazine worked on a few recordings and mixtapes in 2011, nothing has been announced since 2015. There were also indications that both Ross and Drake were in talks to generate an album. However, sources later learned that the two had never done a record together for what was rumored to be an album titled YOLO. In addition, many were aware of Ross's intention to sign the Pittsburgh rapper Wiz Khalifa in 2010. While the two did record music together in Ross's studio, Khalifa never did sign to MMG in the end. One of the albums that seemed to have promise was one that was to have a joint venture between Rick Ross and Birdman. Back in 2013, the two released a joint mixtape that both artists had been discussing since 2008. Immediately after recording the material, they released it and spoke about releasing Volume 2 in the next year. Unfortunately, Volume 2 never did get released, in part due to the tension between the two artists. In 2013, both Tracy T and Fat Trel signed to MMG, though Tracy T did release an official single titled 16 with Meek back in 2013. While Tracy T admitted that he was prepared to release a mixtape, he was less sure about releasing an album. By 2014, rapper Fat Trel appeared on a number of tracks as a guest appearance and in a few live concerts, though he never appeared on an official Maybach Music album, and he's consistently been in and out of jail or prison, so that's made it difficult for him to catch his stride. But today, there doesn't seem to be any upside to Maybach Music. There hasn't been an artist signed to them in years. And by years, I would say 6, 7, 8+ years.
So is Maybach Music even still a thing?
The current crop of artists are more so legacy acts, we could say, when we're talking about Meek Mill, for instance, and Rick Ross. And it seems like Rick Ross's business ventures have taken a bigger hold of how he prioritizes things as opposed to the music side when it comes to signing new artists and being on the ball with that. But let me know what y'all think in the comments. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.
Definitely shout out to you. Hello, Yassine, Maybach Music. Oh, Rose. Let me know what y'all think. I feel like I said, it's not always good for artists to try to sign artists because it never really works out because they're still focused on their career and they not gonna put all their money into you when they still gotta push their songs and everything else. So it's best to just sign a distribution deal. But with that being said, I appreciate y'all for all the love and support. Love is love, and I'm gonna catch y'all in the next video.